Over the years, the internet has witnessed the rise of numerous prominent creators, and it's not uncommon to see the cultivation of fan bases that become attached to these creators on a number of levels. YouTubers in particular can forge a strong connection with their audience. We almost feel like we know them, and when we see our favorite creators experience hardships, we as an audience empathize with them. And it's sometimes easy to forget that content creators aren't invincible. They're real people that suffer many of the same struggles that the rest of us do. There are numerous content creators who have died while battling disease or suffering from tragic accidents. And in cases where this happens, those that were very attached to that person's content feel it very deeply, because the person whose videos they were just watching the other day is suddenly abruptly gone. It's not a very pretty picture, but that's the harsh reality of it. But what happens when someone abuses that connection to their audience? What if someone manipulated the emotions of their fans and created a false scenario in which a feeling of genuine empathy was created? What if a YouTuber faked a tragedy for attention? Or, to be more specific, what if a YouTuber faked their own death? That is what we are going to discuss today, and it all starts with a man by the name of Sketchek. Now, who is Sketchek? Well, let's rewind a bit. To give a brief overview, Sketchek is a YouTuber, I guess, that creates Team Fortress 2 content, most of which centering around him taking advantage of exploits in the game and completely destroying the other team in very satisfying little short videos. He was most famous for his skills as a pyro player, and I gotta say, watching it is pretty impressive. And he would go on to build a very dedicated, if not somewhat modest, fan base, and became one of the most prominent and respected players in the Tf2 community. But around 2015, Sketchek decided that it was time to move on, so he did what any reasonable, rational human being would do and said he had a nondescript terminal illness and that he had about a year left to live.
I don't want to reveal too much information about my illness, but the doctors are saying that I probably don't have a lot of time left. At best, I've got about a year before my condition gets so bad that I'll need constant life support, and my chances of recovery are looking low, to say the least.
Now this right here was from a video called PSA, and this is actually not the last video he posted on his channel. His true goodbye video would be one called Closure, in which he elaborated a bit more on the state of his life and went on to talk about how much his perspective had changed. He goes on to say that there will be no more uploads on his channel and that he's uninstalled Tf2 from his computer, given away all his items, and even if he does recover, he is not returning to his channel.
I'm very ill, my health is gradually deteriorating, and the clock is ticking, so to speak. I simply cannot afford to spend any more time than I already have maintaining the channel. And this is my absolute final video to say goodbye before I stop using this account. So feel free to unsubscribe if you haven't already. There will be no more videos coming from this channel.
After this, he ghosted off of the internet and would not upload a video or indeed even interact with people on the internet under the name of Sketchek as a whole for a whopping 3.5 years, and people simply assumed that his illness had gotten the best of him and that he had sadly died. He was someone that introduced a lot of people to TF2 as a game, and this loss hit hard. That is, up until about a month ago, when he uploaded a video announcing his grand return and that he would now be uploading more exciting Sketchek videos on his channel again, with no explanation as to why he left and suddenly returned. Soon enough though, it was revealed that this whole situation was just a joke made by Sketchek. He would make a post on Tf2 forums and shortly afterwards would make an apology video explaining why he had done the things he did. And what exactly was his reasoning for doing this? Well, honestly, no reason other than to stir up attention. Sketchek essentially spends the entire apology video talking about how he knows it was a sick joke and that he had once thought video games were ruining his life, how he had wanted to get attention and go out with a bang before leaving YouTube, apologizes, says he expects backlash but doesn't expect to be forgiven, and promises to make new and better content. Looking at the like to dislike ratio on his apology and then looking through the comments, it's interesting to note how many people are completely fine with this. Sketchek has ultimately gotten off with just a slap on the wrist and continues to upload content on his channel on a semi-consistent basis. Some people got mad, some people made videos on it, but most accepted the fact that he had faked his own death and simply moved on. But I don't buy any of it. Looking at his apology, it's quite basic. It has many of the same aspects to it that most YouTube apology videos do, but I can at least appreciate that he gets right to the point and doesn't just sit there feigning tears and faking emotion. It's good he acknowledged that he messed up, though that hardly excuses anything that he did. Watching the video, it's quite easy to pinpoint why Sketchek left. As he himself said, he felt as if video games had taken something from him in some way. But this isn't something that I believe should simply be forgotten about and brushed under the rug as many people have done. Sketchek himself doesn't seem to be too bent out of shape about the whole thing, and even says this at the end of his apology.
Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing a bunch of e-celebs virtue signal over this.
Besides the fact that the implication anyone who criticizes him is just virtue signaling is completely dumb, the fact he thought it was appropriate to throw in a sarcastic quip about receiving criticism kinda shows he doesn't feel all that bad. Sketchek and many of the people who have already forgiven him seem to not entirely grasp the gravity of what Sketchek has exactly done. Death is something that weighs heavily down upon us in a multitude of ways. I don't have a problem with joking about death, to be completely honest with you, as I think anything can be joked about, even if it is in very poor taste. But what Sketchek did was not a joke. A joke is something made with the intention of making people laugh, but there were no signs of Sketchek's original intention being to make people laugh at all. And no, I am not saying that it isn't a joke because nobody laughed. I mean, literally, by definition, what he did was not a joke. There was no punchline. There were no hints that this was a joke. There was no setup. This was a legitimate attempt to act as if he had been diagnosed with a fatal terminal illness.
I'm going to try being as straightforward and honest as I can with you guys for once. I know I tend to play this character that's really aloof and sarcastic when I'm on the internet, but this is actually a serious ordeal, so I'm going to put that aside for just a second.
And a lot of the people are defending Sketchek with things like, well, this whole thing happened a long time ago, he was a completely different person back then. And I get that. But the issue with this situation is the fact that it was such a long time ago. Over 3.5 years of people assuming he was dead, to the point of Valve adding a buff on Sketchek's signature weapon, the extinguisher called Sketchek's Bequest, in honor of his death. I'm not usually one to dredge up things from people's past and criticize them for it if it's obvious they've changed. In this situation, however, it's a bit hard to judge how much he has changed, considering the fact that we haven't seen a whole lot of his personality before the situation unfolded, and we still don't know a whole lot about him 3 years later. And looking back at the 2 goodbye videos with the knowledge that all of it was fake, I really just can't help but feel frustrated by it all.
I've been talking to doctors and other patients with horrible illnesses, such as cancer, and most would agree that talking about your misfortune, more than is necessary, only serves to suck the life out of whoever's listening, especially yourself. That's not to say you should ignore and forget the reality of your problems, just that time and energy spent brooding over it could be spent working towards better things.
All that talk about gaining a new perspective on life, talking about how he was busy with paperwork and doctors, and talking with people who had terminal illnesses like cancer was all just a lie. What makes it even worse is the context of the time period that Sketchek announced his supposed illness. At the beginning of 2015, the Tf2 community saw the loss of a very beloved creator who went by the name Kitty0706, who unfortunately died of terminal cancer on January 25th of that same year. And later that year, Sketchek decided it would be a great idea to pretend he had a terminal illness. To be fair, Sketchek could have been completely unaware of his death, but I find it pretty unlikely that Sketchek hadn't at least heard of it, and it's confusing as to why he thought faking an illness, albeit one that he clarified wasn't cancer, was the best course of action when the effects of that death were still very fresh on the mind of the community. I usually don't like criticizing the character of people in my videos because typically the actions they've taken aren't that big of an issue, and it is entirely possible to separate the art from the artist. I also don't like doing that because oftentimes it comes off as a personal attack rather than a critique, which really isn't my goal here. And as I listen to Sketchek's reasoning for leaving, both in his goodbye videos and his recent apology video, I actually don't fault him for leaving YouTube and the internet at all. I can't peer into his personal life, but obviously he was going through some personal changes at the time, and the fact that he was willing to give up something he had put so much time and effort into almost proves that. I also agree with a lot of the sentiments he had on video games, as I am someone who admittedly used to spend way too much time playing them to the point of it getting in the way of my real life, but I just can't stomach the actions he made to get those points across. So what should he do? Well, I think he should stand by what he said before, which is that he would stop making content entirely. Even though I appreciate the fact he apologized, I seriously doubt how genuine it is, and even if it is completely real and he meant everything he said, it still doesn't excuse the fact he manipulated the emotions of his audience and completely screwed over the community that gave him success, all for what he considers to be a joke. He said he didn't expect people to accept him back into the community, but let's be real here. If he really thought that people would completely reject him, he wouldn't have started making content again. If Sketchek were to see this video, which he may or may not, I want to say this to him. Everyone makes mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes throughout my life. I'm not saying you're an evil person, but you pushed it way too far, to the point of it surpassing the scope of your content. I know you said that you understand what you did was pushing it too far, but making more videos of you being good at Tf2 doesn't even begin to make up for what you did, and it doesn't truly fix anything other than for your own desire to make content again. The people that were truly hurt by your actions most likely won't have anything to do with your new content, and the ones that do probably didn't really care that much about what you did in the first place, so your whole logic about making up for what you did is seriously flawed. It's not just the fact that you made a mockery of death, it's the fact that you seemingly don't understand how much this impacted people. If you truly want to extend your apologies, don't expect other people to hold you accountable. Do that yourself. Well, I think I'm gonna end the video here. This has been Slacker TV. See you next time.